Emma Chen had spent her life fighting to survive, but one wrong step in the storm placed her in the sights of people who would use her as a weapon, and the only man standing between her and ruin was her best friend's millionaire brother. The rain fell harder than the city seemed prepared for, a steady sheet that blurred headlights into glowing streaks and turned every sidewalk into a slick trap. Emma Chen pushed forward through the chaos, her sneakers already soaked, her textbooks clutched desperately against her chest. Each drop of water seemed heavier than the last, pressing her body down while her mind screamed about the hours she had already lost. 12 hours at the library, and still she wasn't ready for next week's exam. 12 hours she hadn't spent at the diner, where every missed shift could mean the difference between groceries and hunger. She glanced at her phone, blinking at the time through the wet glass. Late. She couldn't afford late. Not when her manager had warned her twice already, not when she was still scraping together rent after paying for this semester's textbooks. The pressure in her chest was constant, like she was always running out of air, and now the rain added a suffocating weight. She darted across the intersection near Central Park, her bag banging against her hip, her sneakers hitting pavement with sharp slaps. Then it happened. Her foot caught on a broken edge of sidewalk, a jagged piece of pavement pushed up by the roots of some ancient tree. For a heartbeat, she felt her body pitch forward, books flying from her arms like startled birds. She hit the asphalt hard, palms scraping, jeans darkening with water and dirt. But it was her ankle, the sharp, searing pain shooting up her leg, that stole the air from her lungs. She gasped, and then the world narrowed to the pulse of agony radiating from her foot. Rain streamed down her cheeks, shing with the hot sting of tears. She tried to stand, but the moment her weight pressed down, her leg buckled and she collapsed back onto the ground. The pain was so sharp it made her vision blur. Panic rose, jagged and cold. A fracture, maybe worse. Weeks off her feet, weeks without work, weeks without pay. She couldn't even think the word hospital without feeling her chest constrict. Hospitals meant bills, numbers she couldn't possibly face, debt piling on top of the loans already drowning her. People moved around her like water around a stone. A woman in a red coat slowed long enough to glance down, her umbrella tilting, before she quickened her pace. A man in a suit stepped around her, as if she were just another obstacle in the rain. No one stopped, no one knelt, no one asked if she was all right. Emma pressed her forehead against her damp sleeve, biting back a sob. She couldn't afford weakness. She couldn't afford this moment. Not now. If she could just drag herself to the curb, maybe she could rest, maybe it would ease. Maybe she could hobble home, ice it, pretend it wasn't as bad as it felt. But her ankle throbbed with every movement, swollen already, the skin tight under the soaked fabric of her jeans. Her thoughts spiraled. No rent, no tips, no textbooks next semester, no future. She had clawed her way this far, every step uphill, every victory earned through sleepless nights and endless sacrifice. And now, brought down by a crack in the sidewalk, by the cruel coincidence of rain and bad luck. Then, above the hiss of rain and the roar of traffic, she heard it, the low purr of an engine. She lifted her head, blinking water from her lashes. A sleek black car slid to a stop beside the curb, its glossy surface beaded with rain, out of place in the grimy street. The driver's door opened with quiet assurance, and a figure stepped into the storm. He moved with an ease that cut through the chaos, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair plastered slightly to his forehead, as if even the rain respected his presence. The expensive suit clung to him, yet he didn't seem to care. His eyes, steady, sharp, filled with concern, locked on her immediately. Emma's breath caught, not from pain this time, but from the strange certainty that this man, a stranger, had appeared for her. He wasn't like the others who passed her by. He was already moving toward her, undeterred by the water rushing down the gutter, his focus unshakable. For the first time since she hit the ground, Emma felt the tiniest flicker of something that didn't feel like despair. Help. But she didn't know yet if she could accept it. The rain hadn't stopped by the next evening, as if Manhattan itself wanted to remind Emma that her world was still fragile, that nothing came easily. She lay in a hospital bed she never meant to see, her ankle immobilized in a cast, the sharp scent of antiseptic surrounding her like a warning. Every tick of the clock drilled into her head, bills piling, shifts missed, the weight of debt already pressing harder than the cast around her foot. She should have been studying. She should have been at work. Instead, she was helpless, her textbooks stacked uselessly on the bedside table. But she wasn't alone. Oliver Blackstone stood near the window, his dark suit jacket draped over the chair, his tie loosened, his expression unreadable. He had come in with Sophia, moved with her as if this rent the first crisis he had handled, as if he was used to taking command. Yet unlike Sophia's restless concern, Oliver carried himself with unsettling calm, the kind of composure that made Emma feel simultaneously protected and wary. He had paid for her admission without asking. He had spoken to the doctors like a man accustomed to being obeyed. And now he waited silently, arms crossed, watching the rain streak down the glass. Emma hated how his presence filled the room. "I don't need," she started, her voice breaking. Oliver turned, his gaze steady. "You don't need help?" His tone wasn't mocking. It was something sharper, edged with curiosity, as though he truly wanted to understand how someone with a fractured ankle and no options could still refuse assistance. "I don't need charity," Emma said, forcing the word out, her throat tightening. Sophia looked between them, biting her lip, but said nothing. It was as if she knew this wasn't her battle. Oliver stepped closer, his footsteps measured, deliberate. "I didn't see it as charity. I saw it as the only reasonable course of action. You were in pain. You needed care. I handled it." Emma's chest tightened. His certainty clashed against everything she had built her life around. Independence was survival. Pride was armor. Yet here was a man dismantling both with quiet efficiency. "Why?" The word slipped out before she could stop it. For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Hesitation, vulnerability, maybe even weariness. "Because Sophia cares about you," he said slowly. "And because when I see someone determined enough to keep walking in the rain, even when life keeps knocking them down, I don't walk away." The room fell silent. The storm outside seemed to echo her pounding heart. Emma wanted to argue, to shove away the warmth creeping into her chest. But the truth was, no one had ever said words like that to her before. No one had ever looked at her and seen more than exhaustion and stubborn survival. Sophia finally spoke, her voice gentle. "Emma, you can't climb 4 flights of stairs on crutches. You can't work double shifts at the diner while your ankle heals. You'll hurt yourself worse. My brother has space. Let him help you." Emma's gaze snapped to Sophia, then back to Oliver. "Your brother?" The revelation landed like a stone in her gut. "You never said—" Sophia flushed, brushing a wet strand of hair from her forehead. "I didn't want anyone treating me differently. I used Mom's name at school. But yes, Oliver is my brother." Emma's head spun. It explained so much. The ease with which Oliver had appeared, the quiet authority, the wealth that seemed stitched into his every movement. She had walked into a trap she didn't see coming. Not a malicious one, but a trap nonetheless. Debt to a man like Oliver Blackstone. "I can't," she whispered, shaking her head, gripping the blanket as if it could anchor her. "You can," Oliver replied, his voice low but unwavering. "Not because I command it, because it's the only choice that doesn't end with you back here in worse shape." The conviction in his eyes unsettled her. There was no arrogance, no superiority, only an unyielding certainty that made her feel seen and trapped at the same time. Outside, lightning split the sky, a jagged white scar across the dark clouds. Inside, Emma's silence stretched, a battle raging between her desperate pride and the practical truth. She didn't know it yet, but saying yes to Oliver Blackstone's offer would change everything, not just her recovery, not just her studies, but the course of her entire life. And in that sterile hospital room, with rain hammering the city and a stranger's gaze burning through her defenses, Emma felt the first tremor of something she had never allowed herself before, the possibility of surrender. Emma's first morning in Oliver Blackstone's home began with silence so deep it unnerved her. No honking taxis outside her window, no upstairs neighbors stomping across creaky floorboards, no sirens wailing through the night. Instead, she woke to sunlight spilling across cream-colored walls and the faint hum of central heating. For one suspended moment, she forgot the cast on her ankle, forgot the accident, forgot everything, until she sat up too quickly and pain lanced up her leg, pulling her back to reality. This wasn't her studio apartment, this was Oliver's world. She pressed her palm against the Egyptian cotton sheets, so smooth they almost made her flinch. Her entire apartment could fit into this guest room, and still there would be space left over. On the dresser, a vase of fresh lilies glowed in the morning light, their fragrance delicate and almost unreal. She hadn't even noticed them last night. Had Oliver arranged them? Or was this simply the kind of detail his world produced without effort, like money breathing itself into beauty? Emma swung her legs carefully to the side of the bed, balancing awkwardly on her good foot. Crutches leaned against the wall within reach, placed there with a precision that suggested someone thought about her before she woke. The gesture unsettled her as much as it comforted her. Her stomach growled, betraying her, but the idea of wandering through a mansion she didn't belong in made her chest tighten. She'd never been in a space like this, never been anywhere that echoed wealth in every corner yet felt lived in. The door creaked open and she startled, gripping her crutches. A woman with kind eyes and streaks of silver in her hair stepped inside, balancing a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Miss Chen. I'm Mrs. Patterson." Her voice was warm, steady, practiced. "Mr. Oliver asked me to check on you." Emma blinked, overwhelmed by the sight of scrambled eggs, fresh fruit, and a delicate china teacup. Her throat closed. She'd been expecting hospital cafeteria leftovers, or maybe takeout cartons, not this. "You didn't have to." "Of course we did," Mrs. Patterson interrupted gently, setting the tray across Emma's lap. "You're a guest in this house, and Mr. Oliver insists his guests never go hungry." Emma flushed, picking up the fork with trembling fingers. Each bite tasted like indulgence, like a reminder of just how far she was from her world of instant noodles and diner leftovers. When Oliver appeared in the doorway an hour later, he didn't stride in like the owner of a multi-million-dollar brownstone. He leaned casually against the frame, his tie already loosened despite the early hour, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Do you approve?" he asked, nodding at the tray. Emma set down her fork, embarrassed at being caught enjoying it. "It's nice." His mouth curved into the faintest smile. "That's Mrs. Patterson's way of spoiling people. Don't let her fool you. She's ruthless when I forget to eat." The casual confession caught her off guard, softening her assumptions about him. She had expected arrogance, maybe detachment. Instead, he looked almost human in the morning light, shadows under his eyes betraying long nights. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly, the question sharper than she intended. Oliver tilted his head, considering her. "Because Sophia asked me. Because you needed it, and because—" His voice trailed off, but something lingered in the silence, an unspoken admission. Emma's pulse quickened. She forced her gaze down, focusing on the teacup in her hands. She couldn't afford to believe in fairy tales, not when the price of living in his world might be her independence, her dignity. As the day stretched on, she explored cautiously, hobbling down hallways lined with bookshelves and framed photographs. Not glossy magazine spreads of luxury, but family snapshots. Oliver as a teenager, smiling with two other boys in what looked like a garage, a middle-aged couple with proud teacher's smiles, Sophia as a child, grinning with missing teeth. It struck her like a blow. He hadn't been born into this mansion, he'd built it, from nothing. Later, when Oliver returned from a meeting, Emma was waiting in the living room, her leg propped on an ottoman. She gestured at the photos. "You don't hide where you came from." His smile was wry. "Why would I? It's the reason I got here." The sincerity in his voice unsettled her more than the wealth itself, because for the first time she wondered if maybe they weren't as far apart as she thought. But just as warmth began to spread through her chest, Sophia arrived with a paper bag of takeout and a casual remark that shattered it. "By the way," Sophia said lightly, "Oliver paid your rent for the month. Thought you should know." The words dropped like stones into the silence. Emma's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "You did what?" she demanded, turning to Oliver. His expression didn't falter. Calm, composed, as if it had been the most logical thing in the world. Her heartbeat thundered, pride and humiliation crashing together. In that moment, Emma realized she wasn't safe here. Not from the comfort, not from the temptation, and certainly not from Oliver Blackstone. The storm that had drenched Manhattan days earlier seemed to live on inside Emma, swelling with every heartbeat. She sat rigid on the edge of the sofa, her cast propped up on the ottoman, her hands clenched white around the armrest. Across from her, Oliver loosened his tie as if nothing earth-shattering had just been said. His calm infuriated her more than the revelation itself. "You had no right," she hissed, her voice trembling with restrained fury. "You can't just march into my life and decide which of my problems are worth fixing. That's not your choice." Oliver set his tie aside and met her glare without flinching. His brown eyes were steady, almost unreadable, yet there was an intensity there that pinned her in place. "You were worried sick about rent. You didn't sleep. You pushed yourself harder than you should have, all because of a number on a check. I could remove that burden with a single phone call. It was logical." "Logical?" Emma barked a laugh that held no humor. "I am not an equation for you to solve, Oliver. I'm a person. My struggles are mine to face." The silence between them burned. Mrs. Patterson had retreated after dinner, sensing the shift in the room. Sophia had long since left, oblivious to the storm she'd set off with one careless comment. Now it was just Emma and Oliver, circling each other like combatants in a battle neither wanted but both needed. "You think I don't know you're a person?" Oliver's voice dropped lower, a rough edge breaking through the calm veneer. Emma, when someone I care about is drowning, I don't stand on the shore and watch. I go in after them. That's who I am. The word care lodged itself in her chest like a shard of glass. Emma's breath caught, her fury stuttering. Care? She echoed, unable to keep the tremor from her voice. He leaned forward, elbows braced on his knees, his gaze never leaving hers. Yes, care. And don't try to tell me I don't. I see you, Emma, the hours you put in, the exhaustion you hide, the way you fight tooth and nail for a dream most people would have given up on years ago. You think that doesn't matter to me? You think I can look at you and feel nothing? Her heartbeat hammered against her ribs. This was dangerous, too dangerous. She forced herself to stand, awkwardly balancing on her good foot and the crutch. Stop it, she whispered. You don't mean that. You're projecting, romanticizing this. I'm a novelty, that's all. Oliver rose with her, towering not with intimidation, but with the weight of unshakable conviction. A novelty. His voice cracked for the first time, raw and almost wounded. Do you think I'm some bored rich man collecting experiences? That's what you see when you look at me? Emma tried to back away, but he followed, not closing the distance too much, just enough that she felt the heat of his presence. Yes, she shot back, her pride screaming louder than her heart. Look around you, Oliver. This house, this life, it's not real for people like me. I live in the world where you choose between paying rent or buying textbooks. You can't possibly understand what that's like. Oliver's jaw tightened, his hands flexing at his sides. Then he said quietly, No, but I can try to understand, if you let me. The words, simple as they were, nearly broke her. Before she could answer, he spoke again, the vulnerability in his tone startling her. Do you want to know something? I built my company from scratch with 2 friends in a garage. Now one of them, the one I trusted most, is trying to push me out. He says I've grown soft, that I've lost focus. Do you know what changed? Emma swallowed hard, unable to look away. You, Oliver admitted. Since you've been here, I've been thinking differently. About success. About what kind of man I want to be. You've made me remember the boy who worked nights and lived on instant noodles just to keep a dream alive. You call it romanticizing. I call it remembering. Her crutch wobbled under her weight. She steadied herself, breath ragged. You can't say things like that. You don't know me. I know enough, he said, stepping just close enough that she felt his sincerity like a flame. Enough to know I don't want to walk away. Her defenses threatened to collapse. She wanted to scream at him, to push him back, to reject everything he represented. But her heart betrayed her, hammering in rhythm with his every word. I can't, she started, voice breaking. You can, he whispered, and for the first time, she heard not command but plea. Emma's world spun. Between them hung something fragile, electric, impossible to name. The rain outside beat against the windows as if the city itself waited for her answer. But before she could speak, the front door creaked open and Sophia's voice carried through the hall. Hello? Anyone home? Emma froze, the spell shattered. She clutched the crutch tighter, her face burning. Oliver's jaw clenched, his gaze still locked on hers. Everything had changed, and nothing could go back. Sophia's heels clicked against the marble foyer, the sound unnervingly loud in the heavy silence. She stepped into the living room, setting her shopping bags on the counter, her smile faltering as her gaze flicked between Emma, pale, clutching her crutch like a lifeline, and Oliver, standing too close, his jaw tense, his eyes dark with something unspoken. Okay, Sophia said slowly, her voice wary. What did I just walk into? Emma turned away, her cheeks burning, desperate to gather the fragments of her composure. Nothing, she muttered. I was just about to ask you to take me home. Oliver's head snapped toward her, his voice sharp. No, you're not leaving like this. The clash of wills crackled in the room, as raw and visible as the storm still brewing outside. Sophia's eyes narrowed, her instincts screaming that she was standing in the middle of a battlefield neither side could abandon. She crossed her arms and said firmly, Sit, both of you. Emma hesitated, torn between pride and exhaustion, but her ankle forced her compliance. She lowered herself onto the sofa, arms folded tightly. Oliver remained standing, his posture defiant, until Sophia raised her eyebrows in that way only a sister could. With a huff, he sank into the chair opposite Emma, his shoulders rigid. All right, Sophia said, settling between them like a referee. I don't need every detail, but it's clear something is going on here. Emma, you're my best friend. Oliver, you're my brother, so no more games. Say it. Emma's throat closed. She shook her head, staring at the floor, fighting the tears that threatened. The weight of it all, the accident, the debt, the sudden intimacy of this house, Oliver's unrelenting gaze, was too much. She wanted to escape, but there was no escape here. Oliver broke the silence first. "I care about her." His voice was steady, unflinching, the words slicing through the tension like lightning. Sophia exhaled as though she'd known it all along. "Finally," she muttered. Then she turned to Emma. "And you?" Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. She wanted to deny it, to preserve her armor, but the truth clawed its way out. Her voice cracked. "I'm falling in love with him, and it terrifies me." The confession hung between them, raw and trembling. Oliver's jaw softened, and for the first time, his guarded composure cracked, revealing something achingly vulnerable. "Why does it terrify you?" he asked gently, leaning forward. Emma's eyes burned as she forced herself to meet his gaze. "Because loving you could cost me everything. My independence, my dignity, my focus. If this doesn't work, I lose not just you, but Sophia, my home, my peace of mind. You risk so much less than I do." Oliver didn't flinch. "You're right. In practical terms, you risk more. But Emma, I risk something too. I risk the chance at real love, at something lasting, something that makes all the success mean more than numbers on a screen. You think I'm offering charity. I'm not. I'm asking for a future." The words pierced her, dangerous in their sincerity. She pressed her palm to her eyes, fighting the sob that escaped her chest. "I can't be swallowed by your world, Oliver. I can't become another ornament in this mansion. If this is going to happen, it has to be on equal ground." "Then set the terms," Oliver said, his voice low, steady. "Tell me what equal looks like, and I'll agree." Sophia's gaze flicked between them, her lips curving into a faint smile. She had never seen her brother like this, stripped bare, willing to bend, his usual ironclad will softened by something stronger than pride. Emma lowered her hand, her face streaked with tears, but her voice steadier now. "I pay back every cent, every bill, every rent payment. I contribute what I can, even if it looks different. And we take this slow. No promises we can't keep until we've seen if our worlds can actually fit together." Oliver's eyes softened. "Done." Her breath caught. She hadn't expected him to accept so easily, hadn't expected the faint smile that curved his lips, genuine and relieved. "And one more thing," Emma said, her voice firm. "If at any point this feels wrong or unsustainable or unfair, we walk away, without blame." His gaze locked onto hers, unwavering. "Agreed. But I have no intention of walking away." The air between them shifted, fragile and electric. Sophia leaned back, satisfied, though her chest tightened with the sense that this was only the beginning. Because even as Emma allowed herself to imagine the fragile shape of a shared future, even as Oliver reached across the coffee table to take her trembling hand, shadows were gathering outside their fragile circle. Oliver's company wasn't just under pressure, it was under siege, and the people behind it had already noticed Emma. The rain had long since cleared from the city, but the storm inside Oliver Blackstone's world was only beginning. For days, Emma had fallen into a fragile rhythm. Morning sunlight in the guest room, afternoons filled with study sessions balanced on the sofa, evenings where she and Oliver shared quiet dinners that felt dangerously close to something domestic. She caught herself memorizing the way he rolled his sleeves when he was lost in thought, the way his laughter filled the cavernous house like it had been waiting years for warmth. For the first time since her accident, hope began to slip past her defenses. But hope, she was learning, never came without cost. That morning, Emma shuffled into the kitchen on her healing ankle to find Oliver already there, not dressed in his usual immaculate suit, but in a wrinkled shirt, dark circles etched under his eyes. His laptop glowed with lines of hostile emails, his phone buzzing ceaselessly across the counter. The confident man who had carried her from the rain now looked cornered. "Oliver?" she asked carefully. "What's happening?" He closed the laptop too quickly. "Business complications, nothing you need to worry about." But she knew better. She'd watched him pace at night when he thought no one saw, had noticed the tightness in his voice when calls dragged on too long. Something was unraveling, and it was tied directly to her. She just didn't know how yet. The answer came that evening. A heavy envelope was delivered to the brownstone by courier, its edges damp from the mist outside. Oliver tore it open. And in the study, while Emma hovered uncertainly near the door, inside were glossy photographs. Her photographs. Emma limping down the hospital hallway. Emma entering Oliver's house with crutches. Emma at the window of the guest room, her profile caught in the afternoon sun. Her breath froze in her chest. What is this? Oliver's face hardened as he pulled out the final sheet. A typed note, no signature, just a threat. Step down from Blackstone Technologies, or watch the world learn how easily you buy loyalty with your fortune. Watch your reputation rot when the girl you shelter becomes your scandal. Emma's knees nearly gave way. The room spun. They've been watching me? Yes. Oliver's voice was tight, colder than she'd ever heard it. From the moment you fell in the street, from the moment I helped you, they've been waiting, watching, looking for a weakness, and they think they found it in you. Her chest constricted. The accident, the uneven pavement, the way Oliver appeared moments later, suddenly didn't feel so random. You mean? She swallowed hard. It wasn't coincidence? Oliver looked up sharply, his jaw set. No. I think someone planned it. Not the fall itself, but the moment. They wanted you vulnerable. They wanted me involved, and now they're trying to use you to break me. The horror sank in slowly, heavier than any cast. She wasn't just a girl who had stumbled into a mansion. She was leverage, a pawn in a war she hadn't even known existed. Emma staggered back, pressing a hand to the doorframe. Oliver, this is exactly what I was afraid of. Your world. It's dangerous. It swallows people. And now I'm trapped in it. He crossed the room in 2 strides, his hands firm on her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're not a pawn, Emma. Not to me. Do you hear me? You're the one thing in this mess that's real, and I won't let them use you. Tears blurred her vision, hot and unrelenting. But if you fight them, you lose everything. Your company, your reputation. Then I lose it, Oliver said fiercely. I'd rather lose all of it than let them break us before we've even begun. The word us rang through her, terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. At that moment, Mrs. Patterson burst into the room, her usually calm face pale. Mr. Blackstone, someone's outside, watching the house. Oliver's grip tightened protectively. He pulled Emma closer, his voice steady but laced with steel. Let them watch. Because tonight, they'll learn that neither of us is as easy to break as they think. Emma's heart pounded as she realized the truth. Her fight for independence, his fight for integrity, were no longer separate battles. Their worlds had collided, and there was no turning back. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about choosing whether to stand together or watch both their lives be destroyed. And as the shadows pressed closer to the windows, Emma knew one thing with absolute clarity. The fall in the rain had never been the end. It was the beginning of a war neither of them had asked for, yet both were destined to fight.